Kampai, everyone. Happy Father's Day. Today's tea is some good old water. I just wanted to do water and lights on. Today, since it's Father's Day, I wanted to talk about parenting just a little bit. Just a little bit. We have people praying for us all the time. And I'm pretty sure it goes for generations. For like me, I'm praying for my grandkids to be safe and to follow the ways of the Lord. And I'm pretty sure my grandparents and probably their grandparents was praying for them to go for generations to generations, knowing the ways of the Lord and walking in peace with all of humanity to get things done, to be a light in this world, right? So I just kind of wanted to just talk about that a little bit. Why it's almost like a double standard when we teach our kids and we tell our friends and things like that. When we say, I'm praying for you, it's acceptable. You talking to God, right? On somebody's behalf, they appreciate it. It's acceptable. It's a good thing, right? But as soon as you say something like, I was listening to the Lord and he told me to tell you this, then you're crazy. Or you're following along what God told you to do and people are taking notice. And that's in a negative aspect, they might be taking notice thinking this person is crazy. But in a positive light too, when stuff hits the fan and they're in need, who are they going to run to? Someone who doesn't know anything, and or the person who has helped them and you've seen changes in them for the better. And this is where it comes to really it comes to maturity. But the parents, the fathers, the mothers, the grandparents, those who are praying for their grandkids, and the grandkids might think they're nuts, or the sons and the daughters might think mom and dad always doing this and doing that, talking about this, talking about that, but they're listening. And when it shows and you have a testimony, then you have a perked ear. My mom said this. On down the line, as they get older, they're walking in these same avenues that the Lord has brought you down through. And they come back and say, my dad told me a story about this. And this is what the Lord did for him. Maybe if I follow along those same lines, the Lord will do this for me. And, you know, the way they pass down in the Old Testament, the way they pass down family stories of what God did for them, the children of Israel. So they 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 would pass it down story after story after story after story of all these things that God would do. And it would pass down from story to story, from generation to generation to generation and generation. And what that does is, because it's in the heart, and it's not just something you read about, this person on the other side of the world did this. That's great. But if you say, Uncle Jimmy fell out of a tree and he didn't hit the ground, he, something happened where a gust of wind came and caught him. Or, Uncle Bob went out and he fell into the river. He couldn't swim, but he splashed and he swam all the way across the river. You know, stories of how God did this and how God did that. And you might not know it for a fact for yourself, but it's a secondhand fact where it's like, this happened to my family. They told me about this. And they told me about that. Let me try God for myself. So parents and grandparents, and even the sons and daughters, my children, it's important to have your experiences and be able to tell somebody. Knowing that you serve an actual God that's listening and working on your behalf and speaking to you, where I need to do this. In my spirit, I feel like I need to do this. When you have that assurance that this is happening for your good or for your children or your children's good, you can rest assured that you have protection. Things might not always go the way you want them, but remember, all things are working for your good. And I feel bad for those who are growing up without that support system, that mother and father or grandma and grandpa who's praying for them. So when they start to go through stuff, they're lost. They're, stumbling in the darkness, really just doing the exact same thing that their parents did who didn't know the Lord either. So there's a light being shined for you in this darkness. And when you look down, or we look around, or we look up, or we look within, and we are able to function, we are able to overpower or overcome these things that are coming against us. That strength is not really just you alone. Somebody's been praying for you all this time. And if you believe that, you can stand on that even stronger than if you just say, that person's crazy. If somebody's coming up to you and says, God told me to tell you this. Now you're going to have to test these things to make sure it's from God. But I still wouldn't take it lightly, because people who don't have anything don't have anything. What I mean by that, the people sitting in darkness are usually sitting in darkness. I know I just said the same thing twice, but on the opposite side, people who have light, people who can hear from God, have light, and they can hear from God. So if you are somebody that has light, when everything goes dark, it's easier to see that person and run to them than it is to sit in darkness and be darkness. You can hide pretty well. So I just wanted to encourage everybody this week, as you start to go through this week and you start to do your reflections and you start to pray for your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids, all your friends. When you start to pray and you start to listen, be encouraged that your words are heard and things are happening in the background and on your behalf. So don't change it. Don't give up. And that's like I said, happy Father's Day. I'm a dad and I pray for my kids. And when they start to really go out and venture on their own, I kind of worry a little bit. I also pray a little bit. And I'm rest assured that, hey, things are happening for their good, no matter what. If I'm resting on these scriptures and the things that God tell me, hey, you better call them and see what they're doing. If I call and see what they're doing, then, I'm just acting on what God told me to do. Leave them alone. Let them do what they need to do. I got this. I leave them alone. Let them do what they need to do because He got it. So I just want you guys to know that your words are being heard and things are being set up according to what you prayed. So, with that being said, enjoy your tea time. Kampai.